If you haven't made this mistake, you're not in security.
So, according to a report by your company, JD, IT leaders believe employees are 85% more likely to leak files than they were pre-COVID. Now, I can see this going up, but that's a pretty startling increase. So I want to know from your take, why do you think this is the reason for this drastic increase? And then second, I want to mention another report from the National Science Foundation found that 1 out of 20 tasks by employees violate security policies. And when I first read that, I was thinking, it's kind of inevitable that your staff is going to eventually violate policy. It's like, it just takes time, nothing else. So why the massive increase? And is it just inevitable your staff's going to violate, policies? JD.
Let's start with the National Science Foundation. For sure, 1 out of 20 tasks violated security policies. I do think it is inevitable. I think the technology that our users use today, there's going to be some scenario where employees are just trying to get their job done and they're going to make mistakes, or they're going to do something that they don't truly understand the security risks of and put the company at risk. In terms of the 85% more likely to leak files stat, there's a few things going on that I think lead to this. I think the first one and the biggest one being turnover. So we know that when employees leave organizations, they take lots of data with them. And today we're seeing an incredibly high rate of turnover that companies are experiencing. I think the New York Times or Wall Street Journal called it the Great Resignation. And so this definitely plays into that statistic. The second reason why we're seeing this so high is really the shift in technology that has occurred kind of pre-COVID and post-COVID. So as people shift to work from home, their hybrid environment, there are a number of companies that move to adopting kind of different ways of collaborating and sharing data. And so data moved out of networks and they moved to cloud solutions like Azure, GCP or AWS. Data files moved from storage servers to Google Drive and OneDrive and Box. This technology shift has been wonderful and great for collaboration, but it also has created risks. And so many of these great collaboration tools, it just makes it easy to accidentally or maliciously take data out of the organizations. And so for us, our security teams, we have lost control, and we really just need that visibility in place for all these new technologies that our companies are using.
What have you seen, Andy, in the past couple of years in terms of sort of abuse of policies? And again, non-malicious abuse.
Yeah. So actually, I liked the comment of abuse of policies because I interpret it very differently. Many organizations write policies that cannot be followed and get in the way of the business. And so, of course, your employees are going to violate them because they have a job to do. And you wrote a policy that says they are not allowed to do their job. They're going to ignore you. That's very simply what's about to happen. We have as a policy, don't click stuff. Except HR sends those messages that you have to click to get employed, and finance sends the ones you have to click to get paid. And so many things you have to click. In fact, security teams send the ones you have to click to go take security awareness training that tell you not to click things. So at what point do you get to say, I'm not even saying should you? Do you even get to say that the employee has violated a policy when the only reason you have that policy is so that you can tell your auditors that you have a policy? That's not a real policy. Those aren't violations. And then one thing about the NSF thing, it was a study funded by the NSF, published in HBR. And we should be really careful about reading anything into that study because the way it was done was they surveyed people and asked them what they had done. And so there was a very strong correlation with people who had high stress days and were willing to say that they violated policies.
Right. And that's what that article was about people are more stressed out. And when they're more stressed out, they violate policies.
Yeah, except I think the answer is that when they're willing to admit that they are more stressed out, they're willing to admit they're violating policy. We should be careful not to believe that means there's a correlation between when they violate policy. It's when they're willing to admit it.
That's a good point there. JD, I want to go back to something Andy just said in that could a lot of this problem of violating policies be corrected if policies that are errant or pointless or making people's lives more difficult, if those could be course corrected, it could really save a lot of headaches.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. The thing I think we'll talk about in a minute is training. And I think there's a training element that ties to policy. Many of the policies that security teams write, we say things like, thou shalt do this and not do that. When employees run into that and they're trying to get their job done, they don't know in lots of cases, the right way to do it or the wrong way to do it. And so even though they may read the policy and understand it, I think where the rubber meets the road is the how. And so, okay, how do I get my job done without violating the policy? And that's where the entrance of like training comes in. And we have to really educate our employees on the right way to get something done versus the wrong way. And it needs to be kind of that just in time education. And so there's just a fundamental disconnect from a written policy that sits there kind of static and the user in everyday life just trying to get their job done and running up against violations of policy, maybe not even knowing it and not even knowing the right way to execute a task.
I think, JD, you have just made a good argument for tabletop exercises for policies. You write a policy. Now let's actually practice how this would work in real life. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, something that we do at Code42, we do at least one tabletop exercise a year, and we're testing all of our policies. We're testing all of our processes, and we're adjusting based on kind of our lessons learned from each exercise.
Yeah, and it's not so much a tabletop exercise, should we be breached, but a tabletop exercise, okay, this policy is in place. How do people do their job knowing this in place? We realize they can't. Maybe we should adjust the policy. Andy, have you ever seen anything like this?
Oh, absolutely. We used to do this all the time. And what's fascinating is modal bias kicks in here, and it's lovely to watch. Imagine the IT team comes to the security team and says, we have a new policy we want to implement. Like the security team will rip it to shreds and point out all the ways that it will not possibly work and users will hate it, et cetera. And then the security team goes and writes a policy and does not apply the same thinking because it's their policy. And they're, of course, too brilliant to make that mistake. You have to apply the same adversarial thinking to your own work as you do to everybody else's work, because the security team is the expert in adversarial thinking. And so if they create a policy, there's nobody who really is as good as they are at figuring out how employees will break the policy because it got in their way. So you have to do that consciously yourself.